Lovely little doodad came by UPS today. This is the Grizzly 10-inch half horsepower bandsaw. Here is the model number. Let's kind of walk through this here. So this does come with a stand. Now I'm going to consider putting it in that corner of the workbench. You can check out this workbench build. I got another video on this. Potentially going to sit it here. Got the legs, got the table, and get down to the next layer here. Rating at 120 volts, 3.5 amps. It's single phase, and it wants to be on a 15 amp circuit. Hey, we got a test coming up on these materials, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure to memorize the contents. It says workbench load, minimum working clearance is here, 28 inches deep, 21.5 inches wide. Here the rail is aluminum, but the miter gauge is plastic. I also don't notice any detents or slots for this to sit. I did notice when I was tightening down it had a tendency to wobble a little bit, so it might be a little bit easier when it's sitting in the slot to get it precise, but that is a kind of a letdown, a little bit of a crude instrument there, but you know, most of the miter gauges I get with tools are so at best. The cutting base here, decent push block, pretty big. These are like steel, pretty heavy. Support feet. The motor, dust collection with different ports. It's nice. Everything looks like it's in good shape. To get out of the box, these covers are metal. I kind of like the little feature here to open them. Hey Grizzly, hey buddy. This bottom gear has, see there's a gear back there with a drive band. So it's got two different settings. Motor says it's 3.5 amp. Single phase. Power cable there. Most things are assembled. The blade is already on here. You can see the bearings. These knobs are plastic. I think this is the height setting. This is metal. This knob is plastic. So I made this support plate so I can put the bandsaw onto my bench top. So I just set this on a piece of plywood, marked out where the 4 corner holes are. I'm not going to be using the leg. I get a different setup later where I got more space. I can save those and throw them on. So just drilled some holes where I marked, and then use a Forstner bit to create a little shelf for the nut head, well, for the bolt head, and a washer to sit underneath the table on. There's an Allen key on this adjustment for the angle. So remove this Allen. It's got a spring and a sleeve. Don't lose those. And then you can move this lever to the side where it will work to get you tension. I rocked it back and forth to be able to get to these 4 10mm screws. So the front 2 ones are pretty easy, but to get to the back 2, I just loosen it, tilt it all the way up, and then you can get in there with the 10mm. They give you a 10mm wrench and all the Allen keys, so kind of nice little toolkit. This insert is like plastic, but seems to be pretty flush. Been sort of messing around and squaring up the table to the blade. That seems to be working well. There is a little meter here that can be, or a little gauge that can be adjusted. If you're doing a lot of bevel cuts, then you may want to mess with that. Also, there's a tensioning on each side of these, and if you get these too tight, then it gives more rigidity to the table, but you will not easily be able to adjust the angle. So it took a little time to get those 4 screws underneath, but moving it back and forth made it a lot easier to get access. Tabletop here, this is working pretty good. I used just 2 clamps. Got these bolts in with lock washers, and then if I need this space on my tabletop later, I can just remove these clamps. And while this is heavy, I don't think it's too much of a strain to get it off of the tabletop. I can do it pretty easily and just set it aside. I got these bearings adjusted. So it's a normal bandsaw setup. There's 3 bearings, 2 on the sides of the blade, and then 1 behind the blade. So these adjustments, it was a little bit, it had some tediousness to it, and I think what I found is there's almost like a plate that connects in between here, and there's like graduations, so they kind of click as you're getting them back and forth. I found that if I loosened both of them and moved the bearings together to get them to where they are supposed to be lightly touching the blade, I don't know if you can see them both spinning. If I set one and then tried to set the other one, it kind of pushed the other one off a little bit. So when I loosened both and kind of put some tension and then tighten them down, it seemed to work then. The other thing is to make sure that these are tight. These side adjustments are tight. I had this one a little bit loose, and it was difficult to try to figure out why they weren't lining up until I got that taken care of. And then you can, the tabletop on, you can get to the bottom bearings, and that was, I found a little bit easier to get adjusted than the top. So one thing here about this is this light. It comes with a light, but you see here it's on the back side. So if they did find a way, I don't know where they could have done it, I think most people would prefer to have the light right where the cut is versus having this coming in from the backside. Now it is like a stay flex, but it doesn't have enough flex to kind of get it in front. I mean, you could put a screw or something in here and bend it down forward, so I might play with that. But I think you can get it to where it's, you know, reasonably shining down on the cut area. So yeah, no big deal there. I put some paste wax on this tabletop, and this is the fence here. It slides and then it locks, and I went through and I measured the front of the blade to the back of the blade. It looks to be very accurate. You can see here that this tilts a little bit. I guess it would be nice to have, if you're really worried about that, you can have a secondary clamp just right here. But I don't think that's going to be an issue, because it's still true, you know, within a couple thousandths from the front of the blade to the back of the blade. So to have the convenience of a nice sliding fence is, I think, worth that little bit. Now this is aluminum. There is a little gauge here for measurement. So this just snaps on, and then you push down on this lever and it locks. Now this is also adjustable. This I guess side fence sliding gauge. There's 4 wing nuts. So far pretty good. So I got it to where I want it. There's some extra tools they give you, and I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'll put like a magnet strip maybe, and keep those on the tool or whatever. It's got dust collection below, So, and it's got 3 different points of attachment. So I think 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch. So I'll also test that out. My dust deputy does fit kind of using a PVC adapter from Home Depot. I also have a ridgid extension, and I think this is 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. Anyways, it sits in there. It's not a tight fit. Came with, I think it's a 3/8, and I think it's about 8 TPI, and it's alternating. I mean, dust collection is whatever. I'm just using a little ridgid extension so I don't have my dust deputy in my feet. I went kind of slow, and the blade is brand new. I think it had oil on it, so those are like oil marks, but gave me a pretty square cut. You can see how the light, you know, works, and this is kind of neat. The light works separate from the power for the unit. This bottom piece adjusts for the measurements here, and if you notice, there's a blue and a black. So what you can do is you can detach this fence and sit it so the long part is facing this way for, I guess, supporting shorter stock or having a different fence setup. And there's just 2 wing nuts to do that. I did notice that when I did fire it up, there was some clicking, and I was trying to figure out what that was from. It actually turned out that I hadn't tightened this bottom bearing or torqued it completely. So once I did that, then that went away. So it took the table off again. I checked to make sure that the wheels were planar, meaning that they were parallel to each other, and they were parallel to each other. One of them is a little bit deeper, but I'm not finding that that was a problem. And the way that I did that is I put a straight edge without this table on, and then measure the distance to the wheels. You can set the tension on with this knob up here, and that's pretty straightforward. Lowering and raising the support. So yeah, when you're cutting short stock in small pieces, this guide, you know, having the lower fence option is kind of nice. Piece of yellow heart came out pretty good. I had to reverse it here, so this was on me, but you can see the little bit of marks. I mean, pretty clean. They came out pretty well, other than that area I cut again, but came out pretty straight. Overall, I think this is a good machine. Now, doesn't look like you can put a riser in for resawing large stock, but for about 6 inches, you can resaw 6-inch boards with the right blades. If you're looking for a 10-inch wheel bandsaw, I think this is a pretty good option. I looked at the manual is pretty good, so it's about 60 something pounds, and that works for a bench top, but it has the option for legs and wheels. I'll put a link in the description of the video for this model. It's on sale right now, and this is a 1/2 horsepower, and we'll do some more projects and see how it functions. So please do subscribe to the channel. We really do appreciate your support.